What's up, Burn Nation? Welcome to the Burn Boot Camp podcast. My name is Nicole and I am our Director of Field Operations. So I joined the Navy when I was actually still in high school, and that might sound a little strange, but I did a Navy Reserve Officer Training Corps, or ROTC, scholarship to Boston University. So the Navy actually paid for my undergrad, which was really a lot of the motivation for going into the military. But I have to be honest, I'm a Top Gun generation. And so just really loved that line in Top Gun when they're in the bar and he's like, that's right, I'm a naval aviator. And so from that point on, I was kind of sucked into wanting to be a pilot for the Navy. So I did 4 years at Boston University, graduated, and then the very next day was commissioned as an ensign on the USS Constitution. Which is pretty cool. If you ever go up to Boston, highly recommend a tour. And so I was one of the lucky few who had a job literally right after college. And so went down and did flight school in Pensacola, Florida. And unfortunately found out that Navy airplanes make me really airsick, which is a little bit of a detriment to flying them. And so ended up just kind of going into kind of just a random jobs officer for a clean version of what we call that, and ended up getting assigned to Carrier Air Wing 5 in Atsugi, Japan, as part of our forward deployed naval forces. And so served in Japan for 3 years until my commitment was up, and then came back to the States and started my career. I think the military best prepared me for was just being persistent and having a lot of flexibility in responding to different situations. So really helps me prioritize what's important in my day, but also allows me to be really flexible when things don't go the way I expected them to go, or to work on lots of different things at the same time. I think some of the biggest challenges I faced when I was in the military, well, the first one was actually not being able to graduate flight school. That was what I felt as probably the first big failure in my life, even though, I was doing really well in flight school, but my body just would not cooperate. So I went through even remedial training. There's something we lovingly call the spin and puke at Pensacola. It's really just a chair with a lawnmower motor attached to it that you spin around on, and you try and get over your air sickness. And it's essentially giving yourself the worst hangover you've ever had twice a day, intentionally. So 10 out of 10 do not recommend, but couldn't get past it. And so that was a really big mental hurdle for me to get past. And I think that's part of where I really started to learn perseverance. Because up to that point, I was an A student. I was on, the soccer team, and I had gotten my ROTC scholarship, and I wasn't paying for school, and everything had just gone really, really well in my life up to that point. So it was my first opportunity to know what it felt like to fail. And then while I was in flight school, September 11th happened. So that kind of dates me a little bit, but really being a part of a wartime response was a very interesting challenge. Now, I certainly wasn't on the front lines, but being a part of just that whole movement really taught me about what's important in life and what's not. I think the most rewarding thing about my time in the military was actually the people I met. There wasn't necessarily one particular time that stands out as like, this was a life-changing experience for me. But I still have lifelong friends from my time in the military. The camaraderie that comes from being in the military has really impacted what I look for in my professional career. It's one of actually the big reasons why I'm part of Burn Boot Camp, because our culture at headquarters is just so similar to the military in that we work really hard, but we also play really hard. And we support each other, and we're there for each other, and we're a really big family. And it just really reminded me of my time with my sailors and my shipmates in the Navy. So I think being a woman in a male-dominated industry is always going to be a challenge. I was lucky that I had a lot of trailblazing women ahead of me that set the stage for me even being able to go to flight school. When I was in the Navy, women weren't allowed to serve on submarines, and we've gone even to that now. So I think we continue to make strides in welcoming and supporting women in the military. We still have a long way to go, and I'm excited to see, like, when my daughters come of age, if, what women in the military looks like. But I think what it taught me is how to speak my own truth, and how to stand up for what I believe in, and to know that my voice is just as important as everybody else's in the room, and how to make it heard. And I think the advice that I would give for any woman considering a life in the military or a career in the military is to know your worth, and to fight for what you know your value is, and find a career that you're going to find rewarding, and to get a great support system of other women in the military who can be there with you and go through this journey with you. My very best friends in the world have come from my time serving in the military. The decision to leave the Navy was not an easy one. You have a steady job, you have a steady paycheck, but I had felt like I had done what I came to do, and I was looking to start a family. And unfortunately, one of the things that's really hard about being a woman in the military is having a family in the military. And in the Navy, it's especially hard because you can't deploy when you're pregnant. And so it really changes the duty station that you get assigned or the orders that you get following. So decided to get out and ended up as a defense contractor right after. So luckily for me, that was a really easy transition from military life to civilian life, because everybody that I worked with was in the same boat. Almost every single one of them were former military as well. And so we also had some of that same culture, a lot of that support system. And I was working for military clients. So the lingo didn't change, and the processes didn't change. So that was really, really great. But then I took a total left turn and ended up going into franchising, and I opened my own dog daycare. I was part of the Dogtopia franchise system. So I was an owner-operator here in Charlotte for 10 years. And I think while my military career really had nothing to do with that, I think it helped build that entrepreneurial spirit in me, to know that I could do anything I put my mind to and that I was capable. And so that ultimately led to my career here at Burn Boot Camp. When I decided it was time to sell my Dogtopia, I really just wanted to help people. And so I went into business coaching because I was looking for somebody. I wanted to become somebody who could have helped me when I had started my entrepreneurial journey. And I think that links back to why I was drawn to military service in the first place, is that one of my core values is, above all else, help first. And so, when I think about the Navy, when I think about Dogtopia, when I think about Burn Boot Camp, that underlies all of those professions, is above all else, help first. One of the biggest lessons I learned from the Navy was, first and foremost, I can do hard things. And whether it's the physical readiness test, or whether it's being at sea for 105 days straight between port calls, or being separated from my family, or addressing a room of 42 reporters when we had a plane go down, I can do hard things. And that has set me up to know that when I signed my life away to open a business, like, I can do hard things. And when that got really hard, that was the thing that kept me going. that and my amazing husband who supported me through it. And here at Burn, I think how that helps is helping remind others that they can do hard things, because business ownership is a really lonely place. You're the one who's grinding day after day after day, and it can feel like nobody knows what you're going through. And so I really love being that person for our franchise partners who are in the field and grinding every day, and just being that person to help remind them that they can do hard things. Some of my favorite memories from the Navy are just the opportunities I got to have to see places I never would have seen otherwise. And so from getting stationed in Japan, which is someplace I never would have said, hey, I'm going to live in Japan someday, to being able to see Singapore and Hong Kong and Hawaii and Guam and Korea. I just never expected that a tour of the South Pacific would be something that would have been in my life path. And that was just an amazing experience. And even in as a midshipman in Boston University, I got to go to the Mediterranean, and I got to see Spain and Italy and Greece. And I never would have been able to go those places if it weren't for the Navy. And so I think when I think fondly back to my time in the Navy, those are the things that I remember most, is the people I was with, but also the places we got to be at. Burn Nation, thanks so much for watching the Burn Boot Camp podcast. I'm Nicole Odom. We're going to end it like we always do. 2 claps on 2, 1, 2.